And these are the same 12 steps that I'm always repeating to everyone. So when you come into a consult with me, or a catch up, and we sit down and we're trying to find some new strategies, I'll always talk to these things. So we'll refresh these, because it's always good to hear it back, and you might go, oh, actually, I've forgotten to do that, or maybe I should, implement this. But the important thing is increasing the water intake daily. So that not only helps for our body just to metabolize better, it helps for all of our systems to function better. We're predominantly made up of water, so increasing your water intake also affects how much food you're consuming. It affects how the body digests the food. Increasing your water is really one of those things that, if the members aren't, and just talking to members that will probably be watching this in replay, that if you're not drinking water, to make sure that we find some strategies to increase our water intake, whether it be that we plan it out throughout the day, or whether we buy ourselves a 2-litre water bottle and try and get through that in the day. But making sure that we're increasing our water intake is really important, because it does affect so many different aspects, especially if people are wanting to shift weight. The next one is to eat frequently throughout the day. It can be 5 meals, it can be 3 meals, it could only be breakfast, lunch and dinner. That does definitely change as we get older, or if we're in different working environments. But the most important thing is to be making sure that we're eating every 3 to 4 hours apart. If it's the 3 meals, it might be every 5 to 6. But once we have our meals, trying to avoid snacking or eating in between. And so that's just a way of reducing our calorie and unnecessary calorie intake. But it's also allowing our body to go through its full digestive process with excreting different enzymes at different stages, and making sure that we are going through an effective digestive cycle before we reintroduce food again. So it's just a good thing to do. It's something that, leaving that gap between meals, it allows your body to go and use some stored energy as well, so using up fat as well when it does need it. But it also is enough time for us to register that we're feeling hungry again. And eating every 3 to 4 hours and making sure that we're hungry at each of those meals is the way that I teach calorie counting. So I try and avoid teaching. There's some specific situations where I go through it with members, but generally speaking, reducing our meals so that we feel hungry in time for the next meal is a good way to get a good indicator of quantity of food. Making sure that we're eating just when we're hungry. There's obviously going to be times in the day or events where this is probably not going to be true. But when we're talking about these principles, we're not talking about situations that are sort of the outliers. We're talking about the day-to-day choices, so that we can make, because when we nail what we're doing generally on a day-to-day, everything works a lot better. So trying to aim to stop eating at 80% full. Definitely you could probably feel like, yep, there's room for more, but just stopping short of that. And you know that you've stopped short of that if after about sort of 15, 20 minutes after the meal, you feel like, yeah, that was definitely enough. But also that quantity of food that you've consumed at that meal, again, should take you out to the next meal. If you practice this and you stop short at 80%, what you think is 80% full, and then an hour later you start to experience some hunger again, and it's physiological hunger, then you know that you probably stopped too short. It probably wasn't enough. You might need to top up. But having that practice of stopping at 80% full and reducing the burden of digestion is a really important and a healthy practice. Making sure that we're eating more throughout the day and less after 6 o'clock. Eating more throughout the day is going to allow us to give ourselves the nutrition and the fuel that we need while we're moving more throughout the day. But also, the reason why this step is in there is a lot of the time when I've worked with people in the past, people will tend to eat quite a smallish breakfast because they're trying to be what they think is good. They might skip lunch sometimes, and then they'll find that they're getting to dinner time and they're just absolutely ravenous. And then it's really hard to manage the quantities of food. And that's where We can overconsume at dinner time, and then that can also lead into snacking after dinner and then overeating. And that is that section there of eating can be the real secret to managing weight if we are wanting to shift weight. And that is putting that intake more throughout the day so that you are having a smaller meal at nighttime, but also, even if it's a standard sized meal, that you can then stop and not have anything after dinner, because we really want to be able to cut our meals off after dinner unless we're training late or working late at night. So the next thing is exercise, 2 to 3 resistance training sessions a week and 2 cardio sessions a week, which is what we're aiming to achieve. So that's according to the Australian Healthy Guidelines for Active Adults, which is getting 5 structured days of exercise in a week. So that doesn't necessarily or always have to be the sessions that you're doing in the studio. It could be, Karen, as you mentioned, Pilates, that adds as an activity. Sometimes people are doing dancing, or they're going for a bike ride, or they're doing a session of yoga. So trying to get that activity in, but if you can, stimulating the muscles 3 times a week and doing the 2 cardio sessions. And this is where we find that our members are pretty good with doing their weight training and their resistance training in the studio, but they do tend to struggle to get those extra walks in. So that's a reminder, if that could be something that you want to start to implement this week, is to get those cardio sessions in per week. The next one, and is the real secret to what we've sort of already talked about, is being stronger and maintaining our balance and our strength. And that is making sure that you're getting a lean protein with each of your meals, or just a quality protein. So that would mean starting the day, whatever the breakfast is, whether you're adding eggs in there, whether it's a protein powder in a smoothie, whether it's some dairy or some yogurt with some seeds and some nuts in a granola. So making sure that you are having some sort of protein for breakfast. For snacks, again, it could be nuts, it could be seeds, it could be boiled egg, it could be some yogurt. Having protein at lunch and at dinner as well. So always thinking about that, adding that protein in. Protein should try to make up a quarter of your plate. And the reason why we want to get that protein in is it's going to help with your recovery. But it is, since I've been doing the scans over the last couple of years, what I'm starting to notice is that even when, and this year in particular, I've worked with some of the members that were trying to add some muscle mass on, and regardless of how much we pushed them in the studio, what I found through the scan results was that the best results came was when they also matched that with increasing their intake of protein. And in fact, increasing the protein led to more muscle mass than what did pushing heavier in the gym, which I find is really interesting. And the minute that people reduce that intake, we then see the atrophy, which is the breakdown of muscle mass. So protein is actually really quite important. How much do we need? As I said, it should make up a quarter of the plate, and a serving of protein is equal to the size of your hand and the thickness. So it varies for everyone. For guys, it's or for men, we say it's 2 servings at the main meals. And so for women, we generally say it's 1 serving at your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then half a serving for snacks. That's just a really simple way to think of it. But they're the first 6 principles. I'm going to pause here just so that if there's anything that you wanted to get some clarity on, or ask a question on, or just reflect on, take a note down if that's sort of one item that you're thinking, oh, actually, I've actually forgotten to do that, or that would probably be helpful. I want to commit to that over the next month. So the idea of with the scan is to get some data, and then we find some strategies, we implement something, and then we implement that for the remaining month, and then we, at the next scan, try to see if there has been a bit of a shift with what you've implemented. Now, this is where, playing these videos back, or just having a look at some of the resources online, or just asking for some help to unpack some of these ideas is where you can continue to get that progress moving forward. Is there any questions on any of these 6?
I was just going to about the protein, because I don't eat meat. Yep. Should I be adding protein powder, do you think? I'm not sure if I'm getting enough protein.
On your scan, where is your muscle mass at? Are you in the healthy range, the top end, the middle, or the lower end? Like, where are you at?
For muscle mass?
Yeah.
I'm in the normal range.
But according to where it says the 100, which is the optimal, are you below the 100 or above?
Where's that?
So that number, there's like 80, 100. It's directly under where the kilos is in skeletal muscle mass. So at the top, you've got your weight, and then you've got your skeletal muscle mass, and then you've got your body fat. It's at the very
body fat. But it's just telling me in kilos where I am.
There should be a little number directly under where the kilos is.
Maybe that's on the dashboard. Maybe it's a different spot.
Oh, okay. Yes. Oh, sorry.
Here we go. Weight, skeletal. Oh, it just says minus. Oh, no, that's what I've lost. No, it doesn't have a...
You can't seem to see it. But is it sitting in the normal healthy range? Yeah, I might have to look it up for you. It's when you look at the full report. So if you scroll down to the bottom, at the bottom there's an image of your full report as you get.
Okay. Yep.
Do you have that app? So the app that we're talking about, if people are watching this in replay, is the InBody app, which is connected to the machine. So you also get access to that app. So make sure you access that information, because we do pay a subscription, so you guys can access that information. And basically every time you do a scan, it'll upload the data, and it does give you some extra data on there and some extra information, which is good. Have you been able to see where that muscle mass is or not?
It's not coming up. It's saying image loading, so it's not coming up for some reason.
So if you are wanting to increase your muscle mass, so if it's in the healthy, I just wanted to see where is it on the lower end of the healthy, but I'll have a look at that. So increasing your muscle mass, if that's a goal, to be stronger. And when we increase our muscle mass, we increase our metabolism, so which means we're burning more. So it's all good reasons to do that. So to answer your question, which initially, when we tried to sort of look for some more information, was about being vegetarian, how do you increase your protein intake? So definitely I would be supplementing with a protein powder at least once a day, and you could include that when you get home. So you could include it either as part of a smoothie or a snack, or putting it through oats. That's what I do when I'm having oats. Or the other thing that you could do, just very simply, when you finish your session, you can just mix it with water after your session and just drink it. So you're not necessarily adding any carbohydrate or any fuel to it. You're just consuming the protein as the drink, and you're not mixing it with fruit or anything else. So you can actually just have that as a practice to increase the protein intake. I would definitely recommend that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other times where you'd be getting it is things like toast. Because do you do egg and cheese or not?
Yep. And fish. I eat fish.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And I know that you guys are pretty good with that. So, so as long as you're sort of thinking nuts and seeds, at snacks and breakfast, and an egg or tuna, like, you definitely would be getting it in. And it's more about trying to get it in at each of the meals. So if you're going to have a piece of fruit, just grab a handful of nuts. If you're going to have a salad, just try and throw some quinoa in there, or some chickpeas in there, or some lentils or something like that. But I would generally, especially as we're getting older, I think the protein powder, just to maintain that muscle mass, I think it's a really good idea.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Linda, any questions? No, are you pretty good?
I'm good. I actually was going to ask do you recommend any particular protein shakes?
Yeah, so there's lots that you can choose from. The one, my simple, clean go-to is Amazonia Raw, which Amazonia Raw is a raw product. It's a pea protein, so it doesn't have the sometimes impact on the gut that the whey product, which is a dairy-based product, that can have. And Amazonia Raw is, like all the protein powders, can get quite expensive, but I find it's a reasonable price, and you can get it from Chemist Warehouse. So it's easily accessible as well. There's definitely better options in health food shops, and we can sort of talk about that. But I think Amazonia Raw is, I've been buying it for ages. They were sort of the first ones on the market to do a raw product in terms of a protein powder. It does have free probiotics in it, so it's really good for gut health, and it's just a really simple and easy one to shake up. Like, they're not terribly lovely, but if you're adding them to smoothies, they taste okay. But that's definitely one that I always recommend as a good product. If you are just wanting a cheap protein powder that you can add to a smoothie, Coles sell a 500-gram bag of pure pea protein with nothing added to it. It's literally just pea protein. And it is $10 for 500 grams. It's got no flavor, it's got no frothing, it's got no nothing. But that's the one that I sometimes use if I'm going to be, mixing it with berries and seeds and avocado and sort of, soy milk or whatever. That's what I would sort of add. So they're the sort of the two options that I would sort of say. Keeping away as much as you can from the supermarket ones, but some supermarkets actually do stock Amazonia Raw, but just in a smaller container, just makes it a bit more expensive. Number 7 is, as best as you can, get rid of white flour products. Just make the swap for whole grains. You just get more nutrients out of it, more fiber, and just as best as you can, just getting rid of sugar. That's a pretty self-explanatory one. Do we need to get rid of sugar completely? No, but as best as you can, just trying to get it out of your diet, because it does contribute to poor gut health, which contributes negatively to mental health. And also it does create inflammation in the body. So it is one that is really good to eliminate as best as you can. Making sure that we are getting healthy fats into our diet through nuts, through seeds, through avocados, through healthy oils such as olive oil, sesame oil, and just getting rid of unhealthy fats. And that's just the obvious stuff of just getting rid of. And it's more just the meat fat, the obvious meat fat. We don't avoid the fats in dairy. You can definitely opt for the full fat dairy. That is absolutely okay, but just making sure that we are getting those unhealthy fats. So avoiding fats completely is definitely not something that we know is effective for our health. In fact, we do need healthy fats in our diet to be able to make our hormones and everything function and get a lot of the vitamins around the body that are assisted through healthy fats in our system. Adding vegetables and fruit to each of your meals. So before I did say to you that protein should make up at least a quarter of your plate, while your vegetables or your fruit, depending on the meal, should make up half of your meal. So we've got a quarter of protein, half a plate of veggies, and then a quarter is usually carbohydrate and some whole grain carbohydrate. Reducing or avoiding alcohol as best as you can. Obviously, the healthy consumption of alcohol is absolutely fine in a balance. It's just when it is exceeding that, it will definitely be contributing to weight gain, and it can be a real secret to shifting weight that you may not be counting, but it does contribute a decent amount of calories in there. Aiming for your 8 hours of sleep daily. That's 7 to 8, I like to say. 7 I find is more achievable, and it still is very beneficial. Anything under that is going to be contributing to you in a negative way. So I've really jumped on this last year, and this is a habit that I've changed. It was probably the missing link for me, where everything else was pretty good. I was terrible with sleep, only because I was trying to manage too many things and children, and found that I just needed more hours in the day, which in hindsight, I look at that now and I just see that I've probably been less effective, and definitely sleep is really important to be able to function, make better decisions, and not feel as overwhelmed. And what I find is that when we have better quality sleep and we feel like we're coping better, making healthier choices or preparing meals and taking time to get to workouts or a walk actually does seem to get a lot easier. Apart from the fact that when you are sleeping better and getting your 8 hours in, is 7 to 8 hours in, what actually also does happen, it affects the hormones that affect our experience of how often we get hungry and how satisfied we feel with food. So I know even with myself, if I have gone down with less hours of sleep, I am absolutely eating a lot more throughout the day, and I'm aware of it. And it's really hard to convince myself not to overconsume when I am lacking sleep. So definitely, if you're needing to reduce intake to manage weight, sleep and water are the two biggest factors that you need to get into order. Making sure that we do have a daily practice to reduce stress. It may not even be daily, maybe a couple of times a week. Coming to the sessions are definitely part of that equation, but we do know that stress does have a negative impact on the types of foods that we choose, but also the way that our body stores fat as well. So it is very much because of the cortisol response, we do tend to hold weight more around the belly, and it can be a bit harder to shift. So if we are feeling stressed, then trying to take a little bit off our plate, and even if that be just attending your sessions and not even thinking about some of these other changes, if that is going to reduce the stress levels, then that is definitely a way to be able to move forward and progress through making healthier choices. So they're the 12 steps.